This is Speaking with the Enemy on the Ticats Audio Network. Here is Louie Butko.
Yes, the show is Speaking with the Enemy. The Enemy this week, the BC Lions coming to town to take on your Hamilton Tiger Cats. And to discuss that, we bring in Matt Baker, who is with the BC Lions. And Matt, let's start with last week's game. Last Friday, I know your side on the wrong end of it, but that was game of the year. How did the Lions bounce back from such a high of that game?
Always good to be here, Louie, and good to see you representing the Maple Leafs. Is that a Morgan Riley? Is that a...
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Good BC boy. Good BC
Pride of West Vancouver, Hollyburn Country Club. There we go. So you got your BC flavor. I love it. Anyway, last week, it's funny. Was a bit of a gut punch there for a couple days. You know, coaches, players say you let it stew for 24 hours and you move on. And now that we've had about 5-6 days of perspective, you can kind of look back and appreciate the good aspects of that game. This Lions defense played at a playoff level. They struggled in the second half, but Vernon Adams Jr. Came out firing, 17-3 lead before halftime. They traded punches, right? I mean, we knew that game was going to come right down to the end and required a couple extra possessions in overtime. So, yeah, I mean, big picture, it's looking like this team will have to go back into Winnipeg if it gets past the Western semifinal and gets back to the division final. But you can't worry about that now. Should that opportunity come, I'd expect it to be another knock it out, drag it out game. But yeah, it was tough because, I mean, from a team perspective and from a marketing perspective, a Western final in Vancouver. And yeah, it's not mathematically impossible. Yeah, I'd have to win 2 and have Winnipeg lose 2. But, playoff games in BC Place are always special. But for a couple of days, it surely stung because it seemed like there was plenty of chances for this team to close it out. But I think you can look at it now and appreciate just how hard they played for 60 minutes and beyond that.
Well, I mean, do you get the sense that they can use this? I mean, you mentioned the difficult path to host the West Final. You have to take care of business and hope other teams do you some favors. But there has to be some sort of motivation knowing that, hey, we went punch for punch with these guys. If we have to see them again, we know we can beat them. Like, what is the motivation level after a game like that?
Well, and they know they can beat them. It's way in the rear view mirror now, but back in week 3, went in there to IG Field and completely shut them down in all 3 phases, 30-6. And you try to avoid it, but in our position, you can't avoid it. You hear all the outside talk. Oh, maybe there's a changing of the guard in the West happening here, even though it's early. But got quite humbled when we went in there the second time at the start of August. And that was the weird thing about how those first 2 meetings were both lopsided in each of the team's favors. They took turns laying a whooping on each other. We did. But we've known all along, all this year, that Winnipeg still is the class of this division. We knew it was likely going to go through them in November. And you know what? I mean, again, trying to look at it this positively, say the Lions hang on and win that game, they pretty much have first place all but locked in. Is it asking too much to maybe beat that team twice in a 4 or 5 week span? And especially if Winnipeg would come in here, after a convincing semifinal win. I mean, we're grasping at straws with this. But yeah, I think this team knows that on its best day, if it plays its best football, it can certainly give that team some fits. And like I said, we just have to hope that opportunity comes.
I think, I look at the East here and I think, Chad Kelly is likely going to be the East Division nominee for MOP. In the West, I think it's a little bit more open in terms of who it might be. Mm-hmm. Can you make the case right here, right now for Vernon Adams Jr. to be the West nominee for MOP?
Definitely can make the case. CFL's passing leader. He's had the most 300-yard games. I know a lot of his detractors will look at his tendency to throw interceptions, specifically that week 3 loss in Toronto where he had 6. But Zach Collaros has turned the ball over quite a few times too. So, you can't use that argument against one player and not bring it up for the other guy. But I tell you, I think Brady Oliveira has entered the chat, so to speak. I mean, he's going to come closer to 2,000 yards, and they have 2 more games left. He's pushing 1,500 right now, right? And you just saw in that game here when they needed to chew up yardage, when they wanted to kill some clock, he can get that for you. So when you're talking about Winnipeg's finalist, I'm not sure that's a slam dunk for Zach, because I think Brady Oliveira has made a case. But yeah, I think you can definitely argue Vernon Adams Jr. And we were hyping that up last week. We're like, you know what? The winner of this game might have the inside track, and that has to include Brady Oliveira now. But yeah, nothing but good things to say about Vernon. Was on this show with you back in August ahead of the first Ticat matchup, and we were kind of seeing what he was capable of then. And yeah, nothing but good things to say about that player and the person, and we'll see how the voters stack it up.
To the person part, what have you noticed about his maturity? And I don't use that word in the sense that he was immature before, because I know sometimes when I bring up maturity, people immediately think, well, like, what was his issues before? I would argue, I saw him a short time here in Hamilton, was always a dedicated, but as the guy, as the leader, what have you seen from him this season as he's grown? Has he changed much, or is he the same guy he is since he walked in last year?
Yeah, I don't know if he's changed much, but he is. I'll give you an example. I mean, you see this, a lot of guys probably do this on the other teams, but practice will wrap up and, you look over what's Vernon doing. Oh, he's picking up the yard markers. He's helping load the stuff on the gator for the equipment guys to make their job easier. He's all in a team sense. And I've spoken about this before. Wasn't an easy situation last year coming in. Nathan Rourke was injured. Nathan was, of course, setting the league on fire, on pace to break all of Doug Flutie's single season records from 91. And there was a game in Toronto where Sean White missed a late field goal, would have forced overtime. The first guy to go kind of run over and console Sean White is Vernon Adams Jr., who'd been the starting quarterback, I think, at that point for less than a month. That was toward the end of Nathan's time on the injured list. So for a guy to come in and immediately command the respect of that locker room, that's not something all guys can lay claim to. And I mentioned the practice example. He's always there helping out. No entitlements, no nothing. He's the first guy over to say hi to fans who come by and watch. He's signing autograph post-game and almost missing the post-game locker room breakdown. Hopefully I'm not letting out any secrets there, but that just tells you the kind of guy he is. He's always got time for the fans, and it's an added bonus when the face of your franchise has a buy-in from all those perspectives.
What else has led to BC's success this year? When you look big picture as in terms of why they are where they are, what has been the keys to their success outside of Vernon Adams? Where have they really picked up their success?
You have to look at the skill positions. Look at these receivers. I mean, you have 2 guys who are over 1,000 yards, Keon Hatcher, Alexander Hollins, and there's been injuries to Dominique Grimes, Lucky Whitehead. Seeing a couple of new guys sort of lead the charge with those receivers. I mentioned skill position that includes the secondary. I mean, guys like Gary Peters, TJ Lee, having some of their best years later in their careers. And there's Matthew Betts as well. That defensive line, we saw it. 2 of those red zone fumble recoveries against Winnipeg, and unfortunately the team couldn't capitalize them. But Matthew Betts is 2 more sacks, and he's going to break Brent Johnson's Canadian record. Again, something you wouldn't have foresaw at the start of the year. But I think, the skill position guys, this offense is going to be stirring the drink. I mean, we talked about the measuring stick with Winnipeg, and how stout the Blue Bombers are on the offensive line and in the backfield, and their receivers are pretty darn good too. But that's where I think this Lions team can separate from all the contenders, is if those skill position players are performing at the level they're capable of. This Lions team, I think, can beat anybody in November, but it's going to be a hell of a test.
Well, so here's the thing, right? They're flying to Hamilton. They were hoping to fly back to Hamilton this time next month. It would actually this week, I think. This time next month would be kind of kicking off Grey Cup week. If they were to do it, we know the task that they're going to get there. So it should be exciting. I know that they're excited to be here. I want to get your thoughts on the Hamilton Tiger Cats. You've seen a lot of football. You know the opponent this week. What do you make of the Ticats' late season surge to find themselves where they are at 8-8? Are they legit? Just your thoughts on what you've seen from the Cats.
Yeah, and I think I was on record the last time we did this, Louie, saying that I did not think Hamilton was as bad as their record. I think they were 3-7 going into that win, and we're talking about the importance of an effective ground game. James Butler just proving it again. I'm rooting for that kid, not when he's playing us, of course, but. And you saw maybe he had a bit of a chip on his shoulder last time, but I think Hamilton has the balance to hang around with anybody there. And we've seen it, 6 wins in their last 7, dating back to that August game here. And, Bo Levi Mitchell, I'm not quite sure what their overall plan is this week, but I would expect Bo is going to get the call here for the stretch drive. And it's what you need, right? That's a guy who's done it this time of year, won a lot of big games. And I was talking to Josh Banks, Lions defensive tackle, for some preview content we're doing this week. And he's like, yeah, these guys up front, they've been doing their thing even longer than I've been in the league. And he's been here 3-4 years now. So there's definitely a respect factor. A nameless, faceless opponent is what the coaching staff preaches. You don't look at their record. You don't look what they did last week. So I'm intrigued here. I mean, Toronto clinching 6-7 weeks early. You see Montreal getting their act together again. Montreal's defense, if they're on fire, they can hang with anyone. I'm not sure this East Division is as much of a runaway as people think. So that semifinal with Montreal and Hamilton is going to be a slobber knocker. And whoever survives that, I think, there's no reason to think they can't pull off an upset at BMO Field. So I think this Lions team understands what this Tiger Cat team is capable of doing.
Is there any challenges of coming out east for these sort of trips? I mean, it's so commonplace, right? You're flying to Toronto, you're flying into Montreal, Ottawa. Is there any adjustments that are made when flying out east?
I think that's a little overblown in the media sense of the world. It's funny. They used to travel a little bit differently, but now in the charter world, you can kind of get in and out more smoothly. The Lions, so we'll get in about 4 or 5 o'clock local time on Thursday. That gives them over 24 hours to adjust, and you see them do little things like sometimes they'll adjust their meeting times to go earlier when they're leading up. I'm not sure how much of that they've done this week, but I think that once the ball's kicked off, I don't think that plays into effect. And it's funny, for years, when the Lions had some really good teams under Wally Buono in the previous decades, there was a streak where Eastern teams didn't win in BC Place for 3-4 years. And you heard some people saying, oh, it's an unfair advantage and this and that. It's like, well, maybe the home team has something to do with that too, right? So, but yeah, I don't know if there's much to that. But I'm sure, certainly seen it before where a team's laid an egg out there and that little nugget comes to fruition. But I think if they just take care of their business and have a good week in practice, the rest of that kind of takes care of itself.
Is there any place you have to hit up while you're in Hamilton here, Matt Baker?
Oh, well, yeah. I mean, Hamilton, I'll say this. There's a few hidden gems. What's that? Bench Brewing?
Hey, there you go. Technically Niagara, but I'll give it to you.
Well, quick little story. Our head athletic therapist, Tristan Sandu, his brother is a part owner of that. So Hamilton's has some hidden gems. I know some people who haven't traveled the CFL circuit might be surprised. We're staying a little bit out of downtown. We're out kind of near Stony Creek there. I think you know the hotel I'm talking about.
Yeah, we won't publicize it. We don't want fireworks going outside Thursday night. Yeah, for sure.
Nothing a quick little Uber ride into downtown can't fix. But yeah, bit of a foodie, bit of a beverage sampler. So yeah, I've got my spots. You can have your people contact my people. Maybe we can arrange a meeting.
We'll save it off air. Matt Baker, looking forward to seeing you down there at Tim Hortons Field on Friday. Thanks so much for doing this. Appreciate it.
Anytime, Louie. Good luck to the Maple Leafs.
Thanks.